In his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a, Mark Manson frequently writes about the concept of values. Values are based off the internal desires and beliefs we align ourselves with. They strongly influence our perception of the world and our actions. Values can either be positive or negative in quality. If our values are positive, they contribute to us having a healthy, balanced, and realistic perception of the world around us. Negative values lead to having a weak, skewed, or false view of our lives and others. It is important to note that positive values do not equal positive emotions, and likewise, negative values are not synonymous with negative emotions. It merely has to do with how we perceive ourselves, others, and the bigger picture. Without good or clear values, we are left either running around like a character from Angels and Demons, believing we're facing off against the omnipresent Illuminati, when in reality, it's just a radical priest, or else like a modern Dorian Gray, concerned only with ourselves and pleasure, without regard for anything else. If we have a weak value system, it leads to a downhill spiral of obsession, delusion, insecurity, and selfishness, from which recovery is very hard. But where does Othello fit into this? You know, the famous and rather unorthodox 1603 Shakespeare play that deals with racism and the objectification of women. On the surface, Othello appears to be a story about discrimination and hierarchy, which it totally is. But if we dig deeper into the many layered story, we actually find a complex commentary on what happens when we have a negative value system. Written in 1603, the 5-act play Othello is about the interactions between men of different races and classes. Similar to Macbeth, it looks at ambition, although it takes another angle, looking at revenge and jealousy rather than ascension. Set in Venice and Cyprus, so to avoid potentially fatal cultural critique, it details how Iago sets out to bring down his superior Othello, who is incidentally a Moor from North Africa, which incites a lot of racial commentary on the Elizabethan/Jacobean period using the motif of animals and darkness. Othello is far from the virtuous hero, and he's arrogant and self-obsessed. However, as both characters commit more and more actions based on negative values, they find themselves at the mercy of these weak systems, and soon spiral out of control. Let's take a look at the value systems of our two dynamic main characters. It is clear that Othello's values are not healthy at all. Despite being the noble Moor, Othello consistently displays a childish propensity for arrogance, self-indulgence, and control.
Preach, sis!
He abuses his position of general by promoting his friend Michael Cassio, although he is quick to expel him when his reputation is threatened. His treatment of Desdemona shows that although he loves her, she is a possession to him, or a pet to be groomed.
Oh, no he didn't!
Which is shown through the symbol of the handkerchief. When he has the idea that she is cheating on him planted in his mind, he becomes paranoid and obsessive, instead of rejecting the idea and trusting Desdemona. He allows his unhealthy values to control his actions, such as his plotting with Iago and the eventual murder of his wife. Iago's value system is based off deception, manipulation, and scheming. He presents himself as being trustworthy and friendly to all those around him, and yet, through his asides, he declares that he himself is aware of how jaded he truly is. In fact, only the audience is ever aware of Iago's full plot, which creates a strong dramatic irony that drives the play. Although Iago's true motives are ambiguous, it is safe to say that they most likely stem from jealousy or a desire for revenge, both of which come from pent-up insecurity. The combination of his values and his motives leads to Iago being on a dark path to obsession and downfall. Before we delve into what Othello teaches us about values, let's look at some other texts where values have contributed to characters' actions. In The Cry, Alistair's value system is based off how other people view him. As a politician, a constant in his mind throughout the story is how he can manipulate others' perception of the situation to sway their sympathy. His prideful and arrogant values cause for him to become self-obsessed, constantly fearful, and controlling of Joanna, to the point where he makes her believe that she has killed her own baby just to save his reputation. In the final episode of the television series Class, The Lost, the protagonist Charlie is put into a morally ambiguous decision where he can either save Earth but at the expense of the souls of his people, or let Earth suffer under the Shadowkin and allow the souls of his people to survive in the Cabinet of Souls. When put into a situation of incredible stress, Charlie falls back onto his value system, which itself is not healthy and is based off demanding respect of others and arrogance. This value system is similar to that of Othello. However, we need not just look to other texts as an example of how values impact upon a person and their actions. It is certainly true that everyone can look to their own lives to see how values have influenced them and their beliefs. Personally, as a chronic sufferer of obsessive-compulsive disorder, a part of my therapy is to reevaluate my value system. My OCD values are based off allowing the disorder to control my behaviour and thoughts and giving in to the distressing realities of the illness. However, I learned to counter these beliefs with new values that spoke of being able to control my brain and not giving audience to the destructive thoughts and obsessions in my brain. It is definitely possible for someone's value system to be adjusted or even completely rewritten, and both Iago and Othello certainly have the chance to do this. The downfall of each character directly follows the deterioration of their already unhealthy values. Iago starts out full of bitterness at the fact that Othello has promoted Cassio over him, and begins to plot.
I hate them all. In following him, I follow but myself. I am not what I am.
His obsession leads to plant the idea in Othello's mind that Desdemona is actually unfaithful and having an affair with his right-hand man, Cassio.
She did deceive her father in marrying you.
This plot also serves to exact revenge upon Cassio.
Mere prattle without practice is all his soldiership.
His obsessive values force him to manipulate under the guise of friendship.
I hate them all. My lord, you know I love you.
The lies he feeds Othello become more explicit in their meaning.
Did Michael Cassio, when wooed your lady, know of your love?
And delights in his deception. However, his obsession and desire for revenge builds to a point of planting the idea to kill Desdemona.
Strangle her in bed, even the bed she hath contaminated.
The insecurity, desperation, and obsession that stem from these weak ideas lead Iago to being at the mercy of his uncontrollable actions as he becomes caught in a tsunami that he cannot stop.
From this time forth, I shall not speak word.
Let's take a look at how Othello's values lead to his downfall. Even though he starts out seen as the
valiant and noble Moor,
Othello immediately displays arrogant and self-absorbed values.
Her father loved me. I won his daughter. She loved me for the dangers I had passed, my parts, my title, and my perfect soul.
Although he loves Desdemona, he appears to love her as an object.
To please the palate of my appetite.
Because his ideas are negative, when the idea is planted in his mind by Iago, Othello does not dispute it. He lets it become an obsession.
Why did I marry?
I don't know. The obsession snowballs, consuming more and more of Othello, until he declares that
she must die, or else she'll betray more men.
His actions become more and more out of control until In conclusion, it is therefore evident that Othello can teach us that fixing our values can help us become better people. If we do not amend an unhealthy value system, it leads to obsessions and insecurities similar to that which happened to Othello and Iago, causing their downfalls. Combined with evidence from other texts and personal experience, it is certainly true that Othello helps us become better people through forcing us to analyse our value system. Right, this assessment's done. Bye.